Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there. Time for another episode of Everybody Loves Raymond review. It's now Season 6, Episode 19, Talk to Your Daughter. And this is one that every parent at one point in their life is going to relate with, because it is about talking with your child, regardless of gender, sexual identity, regardless, and that is about life. And specifically, where do babies come from? Now, children are going to ask this question, various ages, various levels of detail, wanting to know. And of course, it's up to you to give them the age-appropriate answer. But sometimes that question will take a big veer to the right. And that's what happens here. Now, before I get too far into the review, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you want to support the channel continuously, join the Patreon. You'll get access to videos early. And you'll also be able to suggest topics for future videos, such as reviews of movies with lines like, "Put the cookie down!" And if you just want to support the channel as a one-off or just a one-off request, go to the PayPal route. Either way, your support is appreciated. Oh, yes. The Sex Talk, or Is It, episode. Another Tucker Collie episode, which, if we were doing drinking games based on how many times I say something in this review series, saying that name would be one of them. How many episodes he has his hand in. It's one of those things that I really wish I was keeping a tally of. Maybe at the end of this, I'll actually go through and write, like, how many are Tucker Collie, how many are that, and then how many are collab ones, or they'll skip like a half a point for a collab. And be interesting to see. Now, this episode is probably one of my favorite little cold opening moments in the whole series, and that's because it feels like it's going to be one type of episode, and then after it goes into a completely different episode. And that is why I actually forgot it belonged to this episode until it started playing. I'm like, I'm sure I'm on the right episode. I'm like, oh. Then once I got to it, I'm like, oh yeah, then it veers. Judge, it's also been a while since I've watched this season and this show in sequence like this. And also, I usually do it faster when I'm watching it for a non-review series. Now, what it is Ray's watching a game with the guys, so it could be any type of day. One of those things, day in the life. One thing I like about this show is that a lot of moments feel like they could happen anytime, to anyone. It's just now we're seeing it in this moment. And Ray calls Deborah a nickname that you don't really think a wife, or if you want to switch it up, a significant other would like. And the guys are even questioned, like, it's like, hey, you call her that? She gives you a kiss? And then Ray's like, it's not the name she hears, she just hears a cutesy tone. And I could call her anything. And I think you already see where this is going. He tries a couple different things. First thing he tries is fat legs. And that goes with it. So the guys are like, alright, wait a minute, let's see how far we can push this. And decide to push it, so they suggest things. How about trampy? How about smelly? But then they push it one too far and combine it. Smelly tramp. Now the funny thing about this is Deborah actually notices. I just love the way Patricia Heaton plays this too. Where when he's says smelly tramp, she's walking like, oh, something, all of a sudden the realization hits her like, tell me he didn't just say that. She turns and she looks at him. And when they lock eyes, you can tell Ray knows he messed up and he tries to get out of it. But it doesn't work. And rightfully so, because even if you have a sense of humor with each other to where you call each other joke nicknames like that, which we know by this point in the show, Ray always likes to come up with these little joke cutesy nicknames for his wife, that's not one that you would go with. Maybe on April Fool's Day or something, but just randomly like this in front of the guys, no. And of course, Deborah keeps berating him later, which leads into the conversation that goes into the main plot. Where Deborah's like lambasting Ray for some of his childish behavior we've seen him do time and again, and we're going to continue to see in the future, his man-child-isms. And she brings up the fact, well, what about when Allie asked where babies come from and you had the sneezing fit and went out of the room? And through some conversation, Ray decides, hey, you want me to have the sex talk with her? And even though it's just a one-off line with it, Deborah does have a good zinger here. How about you get the book and I'll explain to the both of you? Kind of is probably not bringing the whole line, but that's the gist of it. Well, Ray gets the book. He starts doing the prep, preparing. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. I'm so pretty on the inside. And he goes and decides to have a chat with Allie. Now, the show has brought up a couple times in the past that they have been getting ready. I mean, I don't think we've had that episode yet. Yeah, that might not be there yet. The one where I think we did have that episode already. The one where Marie lies about it being once a year for 20 years. I don't have all of them in front of me, so I'm not going to look up. So my apologies if I'm misremembering the order, but I believe we've had that episode already. If not, it should be the next season-ish. But that's another fun episode. Now, it shows that them having to have this talk, constant thing. Now, Ray is getting ready. You can tell by the way that Ray Romano plays this. I mean, this is the season he won his Emmy, so he's on top of his game acting-wise for this character here. That he's getting ready to tell her. And it seems that Allie's main questions, at least here, were not of a sexual or reproductive nature. I mean, she even says she knows they have to do something. They're deeper in the type of questions people have been wondering about for ages. As she puts it, why are we here? Why has God put us here? And the way Ray Romano plays this, perfect, because he's like a deer caught in the headlights. He's like, what? And as he's listening to Allie and all that, he's trying to pull it out, like the word fallopian, which that's how he pronounces it when he's looking at the book, and not fallopian, which even me as a teenager, I knew it was fallopian, but that's because I learned that in health class. Well, he does a little sneeze fit and go out and goes downstairs and tells Deborah that he got ambushed and what it was. Now, the answer that Ray gives before he leaves is he says heaven is congested and is overpopulated, and he sends us down here to quell some of the heavenly congestion, which is a pretty fun joke answer, I'll have to admit. Well, when Deborah hears us, it's like, you gotta get up there. Which I kind of also understand as well, but it's one of those things of Ray was sidetracked. He did not have an answer prepared. He was preparing for a different sort of conversation, one he actually could talk about, at least in a age-appropriate way. Then, of course, the rest of the family show up and they find out. Marie, of course, when she hears what the conversation was going to be about, she's like, what? Typical Marie, her whole thing, like, you going to talk with her about that? It's like, yeah, there was questions, we got to answer them. No, you don't. Yes, you do, Marie. Just because you decided not to do it and had Frank do it, which you find out Frank apparently never had the sex talk, which, minor little contradiction there, considering that there was another episode, I believe it was season 1 or season 2, where they mentioned that Frank had both the sex and the Santa talk with him at the same time. And Ray was even like, don't think that hasn't had repercussions. So it's one of those things that I think they forgot about that little line. And then it just became a little error later. Or maybe that was just a little side talk. Like just, this is what happens. This is what causes reproduction. And Ray was supposed to get it in more in-depth talk later. Yeah, but more than likely it's just an error on the writer's part. It's not like they have a big old thing on the wall where they do that. Even like writers like Stephen King, they sometimes make like little minor stuff like that in their writings and their works. Like there's a whole slew of little minor errors like that in the Dark Tower series, which with how long that series has been around, I'm surprised they haven't gone back in like later editions and fixed some of them, but that's just me wondering about it. Now they're all sitting there debating about what to do, how to handle the situation, talking or different things. Like Rob brings up that the fruit fly only lives for a day. What's its universe like? And he brings up something that I kind of have thought of a couple times before. Is like, what was there before the Big Bang and all that? Was there nothing? How can there be nothing? Does that freak people out? And of course, to go back with Stephen King, He kind of addressed this a little bit in the Dark Tower series, mainly the first one, when Roland, the gunslinger, and Randall Flagg, then known as Walter, the Man in Black, are talking around the campfire. His whole little speech about size defeats us, gunslinger. That whole little conversation there. I don't have the whole dialogue out in front of me, but that's the crux of it. Size defeats us. Is that in a certain depth of view, we can easily describe what's going on, but the bigger the picture becomes, the harder it becomes for us to comprehend it. And Robert's thing there, like, how can there be nothing? It's hard for the human mind and all of its intricacies to comprehend nothing. And I can tell you, as an adolescent and as a teen, I was always thinking that. And as a side, that's probably one of the reasons I'm not very religious anymore, because something like that, it's like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense to me, how there could be nothing like that. And if there's any religious people coming here, don't even try the comments down there. They'll be automatically deleted. I don't need any proselytizing comments on this review series like that. I'm just cutting that off at the pass real quick. And of course, there's back and forth on that. They try even call Father Hubley, but they don't get it. And I just love the message that Ray leaves. I was like, Father Hubley, we're having a call here. I just need you. What is the meaning of life? And I could just imagine Father Hubley on the other end when he's checking his messages, like getting good ones, like, oh, it's a nice little message from blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to return something with a card. Oh, it's a message from my sister Margaret. Oh, I'm going to have to make plans to have lunch with her after the Sabbath. Oh, great, it's the Barones. What's the meaning of life? Huh? That's a new one from him. Then afterwards, Raymond. I'm going to have a chat with Allie after this, I think. That child is going to be so messed up. Stuff like that. It just writes itself. And of course, Charles would play it perfectly. Now, the funny thing about this is that they get all worked up over trying to answer Allie's question or think about a good answer for it, that by the time they get back up there, they're all getting worked up. They see she's not in her room. She's in the twins' room playing with them, and she seemingly forgot the question she asked Ray. So some might say it's a cop-out, but it's a nice little way to get around the question without them having to give a direct answer. Plus, it really is fitting that a child would ask a question like that, and then kind of use my ADHD and like a dog as an example. Be like, oh yeah, so it's like a squirrel. Their mind, they focus on one thing, and then something comes in, completely grabs their attention, and they completely forget what they were going on about. Like me when I lose my train of thought mid-sentence. And it's a nice little fun moment, then something gets broken, and zoom, end of the episode. All in all, it's a pretty fun episode. I like the back and forth with the characters when they're trying to not topple, but try to tackle this in-depth topic. I mean, like, you can probably guess that when they're talking about the in-depth stuff, Robert has some of my favorite lines there. All of them do. I mean, the acting, the back and forth. You definitely see the chemistry that these actors have built. I mean, it was there in the beginning, but it's been honed to the point that you really believe that these people are a family. And in a way, they kind of were. And one of my favorite little moments that I kind of skipped over was Marie grabbing the Bible to try to find the answer in there. And she finds a verse that she thinks is the answer, which, by the way, I haven't written down. It's Proverbs 14:4. And it has completely nothing to do with the question at hand. I don't like how they bring that up, and she's like, oh. It's like, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, Marie. Join the conversation and find the right answer. Nice little moment. There's not really much else for me to say about this episode. Another fun episode, like I said, good little funny moments. Nice little bit of tackling a subject that is known at mankind for a while. And of course, we don't get a good definite answer, but it does bring up a good point. And maybe that's the purpose of life. Always wondering but never getting the answer. That kind of sums up a lot of stuff in human history, but then eventually, in certain regards, we do kind of get an answer, or what we think is the answer, and that is a scientific method in a nutshell. Now, the next episode, I'm going to have a little bit more to talk about, because the next one's going to be a fun one. Because Ray's going to commit another big marital boo-boo. He's going to be voting against Deborah at a PTA meeting. Ooh. Raymond. Only Scroven could write him so stupid and yet so entertaining to watch. Till next time, guys.